My name is Greg Ritz, and I'm in the Department of Outreach and Recruitment right now. I've been there for a few years, and I've been with Mesa since '03 when I came from Northern Arizona University. So, and I was in student life. That's probably why I had some of my largest interactions with student clubs and organizations and stuff. So, I'm going to talk today about, I think, communicating and listening. Since we have kind of a small group, I'm going to be really personal, and I'm going to, if you'd like, I'm going to give you a copy of the presentation just so you have it if you want it, and my information's on there too. So, thank you. You're welcome. I have a question for you. I was walking over here from the library. I was hanging out in the library. The library was really packed. And I was really surprised because the AS corridor was also very packed. You guys ever drink at the Grounds for Thought place down there? You go down that hallway, there's a lot of people. It's a great place to hang out. And I came back here for this presentation and I was walking, well, I don't know. That's what I want to ask you guys. I feel bad when I walk on the grass. Do you ever feel bad about that? I don't ever see people walking on the grass here, like traversing across, and I'm like, you know, well, if I'm going to be that person, someone's going to watch me, then they're going to walk on the grass. Next thing you know, the grass is going to be dead. And you know all the sidewalks we have here, you know why they're here? Because people were walking there, right? It didn't used to be grass. I mean, they have the main ones, but you'll see walkways all around here is because people got off the grass, got off the sidewalks and started walking on the grass. That's why we do these systems. Like, why do we have roads? Right? Why do we have sidewalks? Right? It's because we are trying to navigate people. And what happens is when you're like in your environment, whatever, and I don't think about this, but for me, I think about that all the time. So I don't know, I like the outdoors. And so when I walk on grass, I was at, my daughter is going to ASU West. She's a freshman over there. And they had this beautiful green grass. And we're there at orientation with hundreds of people and no one would walk on the grass. Right? And I'm always thinking about that. And I only bring that up to just kind of start our conversation. You guys are not like that. I think of like really weird things. And because my mind is always going, I'm an adult, ADD, HD person, which means I'm in high definition. So I'm going to like be in your face and let me know if I'm in your personal space. But anyway, today's session is about communication. And when I first came in, Mark and Damaris, is that a good way to pronounce it? Damaris, you guys made an impression in yourself, a perception I gave to you about who and what I was. Right? She's introducing me over there. And I'm sitting over here, which is kind of rude in my opinion, right? She's talking about me and I'm trying to get ready. If I was on my A game, would have been ready and I'd been standing over there. But anyway, when I came in the room, when I went to the setup, when she introduced me for about 30 seconds, all of you looked at me and there was a few things that you thought about. Number one is you looked at me, and don't look at me right now. You looked at me and that was one of your first impressions. Right? Then I began to speak. And you thought about that. Right? And then the other thing I did is I moved. And you looked at my behavior. Right? Now we do this subconsciously or consciously all the time. Right? It might be, you know, Mark's going down there and he sees this attractive girl. Right? He's evaluating what she's wearing. Whether she has like a book bag. Like how she walks. Who she's talking with, right? And for better or for worse, we do this. I think for us, as human beings, we are always trying to find meaning and patterns. And so we do this because we are running through our conscious and subconscious. It might be short-term and like long-term, but we're constantly thinking, trying to find order. When you're in a novel situation you've never been in before, like you have a wreck, it's the first time you blew out a tire. You've never been there before. Your mind is going through all the things that you had learned, your dad said, things that you had seen on the TV show, people that you heard about changing your tire. What am I going to do? Am I going to pull over? Do I have the right equipment? If I do have the right equipment, what am I going to do? Maybe for me it's like, I am going to call USAA. That's what I'm going to do. I'm calling Geico because I don't know what to do. They're going to help me. Right? So we try to find these meanings. This this session, communication is kind of like a complex, I think, topic, and listening is a very complex topic. And I'm only going to talk for an hour because your time of concentration for me will probably be about 15 minutes. Maybe a little longer, I'm joking, but it could be, right? And so I'm going to keep them a little bit longer than that and stuff, but that's what we do. Like you're in a class, your instructors, they want to keep you involved, right? They want to bring topics out, right? They want you to be interactive. A lot of times we have group work, right? You do those things because they want you to be pertinent. They want you to be learning and thinking. So I'm going to try to do that. I'm going to run through this, but it's going to be very general. So this is the first thing that came to mind to me when I started I was going to present today. Right? Do you ever start your day like this? Right? And I'm like, I have been thinking about this day for a couple weeks, just so you know. And every day I thought, I'm like, oh, is it the 8th? Is it the 9th? Or whatever. Today's the day. Right? It's today's day. So we wake up sometimes, and sometimes I wake up, I feel just like this, the boat has left. Right? I get to work. And I was talking to a friend of mine at lunch today, and we were talking about stress, right? We were talking about how we let people affect us, right? We can't control people. We can't control how they react, how they will act, what they will say. Only thing that we can control is how we react, how we perceive what they say, how they makes us feel. We are inherently in this time, maybe perhaps you guys are in school, it's stressful, right? How do we handle that stress, right? What do we do about that, right? And so sometimes I think about this because I'm like a very optimistic person. I wake up, I never sleep, it doesn't seem like I wake up, I'm like doing things in the dark. This morning I was outside. Good things, I wasn't like, hiding or anything, jogging or something like that. And I'm always like driven somewhere, right? I always have to go forward. I never think about the past. The first thing I usually tell myself, when I wake up, it's gonna be a good day, right? I try to convince myself, knowing that there's stuff that's hidden that I won't really realize. I want to tell you a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. I'm not going to spend some time on it, right? But I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the importance of communication and how it's inherently connected in our daily lives, our world of work, our classrooms, our family, the relationships we have, in such a deep way that we really don't realize it. So deep that we don't realize it all the time. And I'm going to try to get into some of these topics. I won't have enough time, but I'm going to talk a little bit about public speaking. I'm going to talk a little bit about listening. All of you have probably heard that traditional model about the receiver, right, and the sender, and how the message can get lost, and how you're supposed to, kind of keep the circle going, repeat what they say, things of that nature. I'm going to talk a little bit about writing, but communication is pretty deep. Right? And when you think of communication, Mark, what do you think of?
Communication between people.
Okay, you think of it's some sort of process in between two people, right? And then can you get a little deeper than that? Do you like glasses?
Not those glasses.
You like these? You don't like these? You don't have any friends that would want this? Every time I go out, I find people who want these things. You want one of these?
Yeah, I got
See? Want one back there? Okay, keep going. So it's a process between people, right? What else? Like you could have a relationship with somebody or whatever and never communicate with them. Right? Where do we do that?
Verbally.
No, I'm saying when do we develop relationships that we never communicate with people?
School sometimes.
School? Right, you get used to it. What was your name?
Andrea.
Andrea? Is that with a A-N?
B-R-E-A.
Yes. Like in the classroom, my daughter's a freshman in high school, and I asked her if she's made any new friends in her class. She says her first period she has not made any new friends, but the fact is that she is, do you remember what I said earlier that we try to find order and patterns? You're getting order in your classrooms right now. Like, do you always sit in the front? Do you usually sit in the front? Are you usually in the middle? But you are in the front, right? In some of your classes that you've been going to, do you have like your favorite cheerleader? You do, right? And when you go to that class, do you walk a certain way now to find the door? Right. And you perhaps even park a certain place.
Depending on
If you can find it.
Spot, yeah.
But there will be a time when you will always find a spot in your place. Right? It might be a month from now, however, but you will know that the South End parking lot during your time, there will be spots and you will always look for that. Right? You will always follow, I said, these sidewalks you do. You always walk in the door and you'll always come one direction to your favorite seat. Right? And if we don't do that, we have like a crappy day. Does that, you ever think about that? Like, what if someone's sitting in your seat? Does that change how you think? How you act, right? Does that ever happen, right? So my daughter, just like you, we read these people, these classes. We have our order, our place. If that order is changed, right, it changes how we think. Now that's a good thing. But some people don't think of it as a good thing. I tell freshmen, new students to college, to environment, old students, non-traditional students, I dare you, especially for those of you, anybody here get dropped off? School? I dare you to park by the stadium. The closest to the stadium that you can. Why would I ask you to do that?
See new patterns.
See,
You
or
can change your own pattern. You have a different perspective.
you have a definitely a very different perspective, and because of that fact, by the time you make it back to your class, you will be thinking different. You're going to see people you don't normally see. You will see buildings, you'll see animals, you'll see structures. Whatever it is, it will happen, and it'll change the way you think. And that's what happens when we're in situations that are different. And what happens is we don't force ourselves into situations. A lot of times that we will develop relationships with people that we have never spoken with, right? So, when you hear the word communication, what do you think of?
My communications class.
You what?
Public speaking class.
Okay, when you think of communication, do you think of only of speaking?
Oh, the what?
Only of speaking.
No.
What else do you think of?
Visual.
Visual, okay.
Well, sounds, but not.
Sounds, listening,
Yeah.
listening, right? And
Could be physical or not.
that's right, it definitely could be physical, right? We communicate physically with people all the time. There's a girl that I work, a woman that I work with, she has like her space. And I'm not supposed to be in that space. Right, I'm not supposed to take her stapler from her room, from her space. You know, but that's very important to her. It's very protective. I do that all the time to upset her. But still, right? These physical dimensions we have is a way, right? Okay. And when you think of communication, what do you think of?
Body language.
Body language, right? Now, a lot of people, and it's very cultural. I didn't realize this, right? I'm affluent. I grew up in the United States. A lot of the things I do in other countries might be considered rude, right? And the ways that I present myself or I act, I could have learned from my parents. We grow up mimicking, right? Modeling. You know, we are very impressionable. You know, birds imprint sound. If they don't hear those sounds during certain times of their life, they will never be able to repeat them because of that time frame. So who we are is a combination of your environment, nature and nurture, right? Who you are and what you do. So I want you to think about communication. And you've kind of touched on it. We're going to kind of skip this. Palabra, the word, right? The word. Now, most of people think about communication, they think of the word. The words, letters, sentences, books, learning. That's what they think of. And that's probably a very rudimentary level, right? But it's very important. I didn't realize that there's some countries, if you use the word whiteboard, that's offensive. And we always hear about things that you should be politically correct, right? So the words are very powerful a lot of times. And a lot of times, in some languages, words are not interpretive or definable. There might be a word in my language Laura, that's not in yours. That you'll try to come up with something very similar to it, right? Because it's just not in the vocabulary or the dictionary, right? But we use them all the time. We have slang all the time that we use. I think my daughter now, I think it used to be like when somebody said sick, that guy's sick or whatever. That was a good thing. Or sick, that was just a sick concert. That's a good thing, right? Like when I was growing up, it was bad. If something was bad, that was good. Right? That's a bad, right? I think my daughter the other day said her friend said she was the bomb. Right? That was a good thing, you know, but the way they used it. So words are very important. The reason I use this is because you guys have already touched on that communication is more than just words. You said that to me. You said body language. You talked about listening. You talked about visual, right? Now these are kind of generic steps that we go through when we think about communication, right? There's one thing that we still have to be in a state of awareness. I think of the word luck. Like you think of people who are lucky, I'm an unlucky person, personally. I think the last thing I won was a cake and a cakewalk. And I don't think they have those anymore. So when I think about luck, luck really is preparation and opportunity, right? And so awareness is the opportunity, right? You can be prepared to find money, but if you're not at a place or an opportunity time to get it, you won't, right? Just in the same case, if you're in an opportunity time when it's there, right, and you're not thinking of it, you won't see it, right? Okay, then we move up to where awareness, communication, it can be knowledge-based, right? You're learning from it, right? It can be, for some, an addiction. It can be you're articulating your thoughts, your presence, right? And then finally, we find some sort of meaning in it, or some sort of understanding. It might take a while, and it might happen right away. There's this thing they call latent learning. And the simplest ways I can tell you is I tell my daughter every day for 10 years to clean her room. I think she learned it like at 5, but she never did it. And then finally when she was 11 or 12, she did it without being asked. Right? She knew all that information, she knew what to do, but it had to be the right time and the opportunity for her to go on that action. Right? And then she did this latent learning. So a lot of the things that we hear, we learn, they may not be relevant. I think about that a lot of times when I'm in my classes. What has this parabola got to do with my life right now? Why am I learning this in my Algebra 082 course that I hate? Why is this important? And later in life we'll find out it may not be the content you were learning, it might be the person, it might be in the environment, it might at some point you're going to talk to your children or your significant other and say, you know what, basketball is really geometry, pool is really geometry, right? There's things in life that fit what I've learned even though I didn't care about it, and that's the hard thing, to be at the moment and to absorb that, to think of what is the relevance. But for me, I'm a very optimistic person. I believe everything has a purpose and everything is good. Now, think about that. Now, that's the hard part. The second part, everything is good. We hear of atrocities all the time. How can that be good? I'll talk a little bit about that later. Okay. Now, we are different than animals, right? For what reason? Absolutely, higher order thinking, right? We have, we can interpret things. We can analyze things, right? This is exactly what they want you to do in their class, is they want you to think, okay, they don't want you to regurgitate that A and B equals C. They want you to be able to apply that in a real world situation where if I do this and this, generally my outcome will be this. Right? Now, what else separates us from animals?
Self-awareness.
You don't think animals are self-aware?
No. Not according to my psychology class.
Oh, that could be. Now, what level of self-awareness? Maybe they're on a different level.
That's true.
So what else separates us from animals? Do they communicate? They do, right? Some it's hormonal, some it's their actions, some it's noise that they make in different ways, right? Do they tell stories? Are you sure about that? I've never been an animal, but anyway, I'm just joking. So, but I wouldn't think that they do. Now, when we think of us as Homo sapiens, right, we have higher reasoning, right? We communicate, right? Now, what were the first that you can think of? What were the first ways that we communicated as humans?
Crying.
Emotionally. Is that what you're thinking? Anger, stress, fear. How do we communicate that? How do we communicate emotions?
Body language?
Pardon me?
Body language?
That's right. Body language is a great one.
Sounds.
Yeah,
That's right.
vocalization even with.
There could have been a cry for help or a cry for
We
hurt.
scream in fear.
Scream. What do our babies do? We know exactly what they're, I mean, I really know what my children were, in a sense, thinking. They had like 4 or 5 different cries. You know, they had the happy cry, they had the hungry cry, they had the sick cry, they had the angry cry, right? We did all those things, very much so. So at an early age, body language, we make noises. What else would we do at an early age to communicate? Think of the cavemen. What were they doing? How did they pass on knowledge?
Signals, paintings,
Pardon me?
paintings,
Paintings.
signals.
This was before they had language, before they had an alphabet, right? They made pictures. Usually they were historical, or there were events in their lives that they were trying to artifact, wherever, right? So they did that. Now, we're progressing, right? We're beyond pictures. Then what did we do? This is when we have language. We develop language, let's say. Then how did we communicate?
Even before language was written, we had the process of repeating over and over and sharing the stories down the generations.
Okay, you bring up a very good thing. So it wasn't just making art, you said the word stories, right? So we had a language,
Histories.
a history, and we would tell stories, right? You heard of the Native Americans get together, right? And their Hogans, for example, they would tell historical stories of each other. In fact, most of our history early on was passed down through stories, and also songs, right? Music, right? They would sing stories, right? And so that way they pass on that knowledge from generation to generation. And then what did we do? So we went from murals to singing and saying stories. Then what?
And written.
Then symbols, yeah.
Then we started forming words into symbols, right? And we developed a language. And then, do you want to know one of the most, I guess, inspirational concepts or machines in our life before the computer? What was it? It was the printing press. Because we had words and we had books, but only the very wealthy or the very rich could have those types of things. It wasn't equally brought out for anyone. When we made the press, we started communicating globally. In fact, one of the first books that were written was the Bible, right? And that's because a lot of those people, those religious people, they had knowledge. They had an education, whatever they could call it that time, right? And they knew history and they wrote history. And so that was the very first one. So then we started printing information, right? Now we jump ahead another 50 years, 16, I don't know what it was. And now we are in the age of what? Technology, the cloud. Did you know you have to pay for the cloud now? You believe it?
I thought, isn't it a little bit free and then you just pay for extra?
Well, to me, I heard it this morning, to me, the cloud was a concept. It's like, how do you buy water? I mean, like a lake, right? The lake is owned by everyone's water. I think of the cloud as, it's just nature and environment. How can you pay for something that's, you know, oblivious, something that's can't run out, right?
X factor.
Right? So now I heard today we are starting to pay for the cloud. And what they're saying is they're paying for a service to get access to that information. The information is out there, is how do we retrieve it? Right? So we walk into technology. Now we are in the midst of technology. All of you, I would imagine, were born, and I hate to say this, I find this so often. Would it be true that all three of you were born in the 90s? No? 80s?
88.
88? Okay. And you were you? You were 90, okay. I don't know, I've been working with a lot of high school students, they're always in the 90s. And so you were born as technological natives. You were born in that environment. In fact, your children may not ever use a button. Right? They will never be in a car that they have to roll down a window. In fact, if they were in that car, they wouldn't know what to do. Right? Do you ever think about that? Right? They're technological natives, right? In fact, you are that way. That means all of this that's happening, all this information in your cell phones, right, is more than the space shuttle. You have access to more information and data that was available in the space shuttle at the time that it was built. Scary. Yes?
So I learned because of that they have shorter memory. Like their short memory is very short.
You mean on the kids?
Yeah.
Well, it could be their attention span. Their memory may not have changed, their long-term, but the fact is they want to constantly replenish it. And they want news, stimulus.
Because when we try
But
to
it could
find
be-
for an answer, you know, we have to look and then we learn different ways, but they just like Google it and real quick, and so they don't absorb it, you know,
Uh-huh.
so they can't remember. Just-
I would really love to spend the rest of this classroom talking to all of you about, you think that we're becoming socially inept?
Yes.
Do you believe that? Do you three believe that? Knowing that, you don't care about it? Or do you fight against it?
Try to.
You do try to, right? So, I'm watching the TV last night with my daughter, watching the groups. It's about caveman group. And his whole premise was anything new was dangerous and fearful. That was the whole concept. And towards the end of the movie, he said things that were new or different were good. But before, we were in the cave, protection, anything new, light, flame, whatever, was dangerous and bad.
Stranger means danger in a lot of languages.
That's what I tell my daughter. And I'm the guy who's walking around campus giving out candy. Is that bad or what?
You're
Would
strange.
you like some candy? I'm like, this mother,
Sunglasses.
son, this is what we tell you to stay away from. That man right there do not take his candy. So I usually try to ask the parents first, you know, can I give you that? Because I love children, whatever. So we're having too much fun here. We have to move forward, okay? We're talking earlier about communication, and we said listening was very important, right? Body language was very important, right? We talked about physical, and the word I wanted to use was touch. Touch was very important. The fact that I came in and shook your hand, you will have a much harder time forgetting me. If you're trying to, in a social situation, if there is someone that you like, just the fact, whether you know them or not, if you were to touch them, it would be a significant change. If you're if you're at an interview, if you shake the hand of the committee or the chair, they will remember you more. Touch is very important, and what we tend to forget is that we need it. I think they have communities now, they might even do like, I think I saw it the other day where there was a a group that got together, and the whole purpose was for hugs.
Oh.
They would get together and they would hug each other, not in a romantic way, but that's what it was needed, right? And so I think that we are very much social creatures. We need touch, right? We get a lot and perhaps too much information by hearing or listening, right? We don't ever concentrate on our vision. Now what happens is your body is constantly taking in information from all of your senses all the time. Things that are rudimentary that are going on, you're blocking out. The temperature of this room is not important to me. The lighting is not important to me right now. But I can tell you, if you saw a sight-impaired student on campus, they would walk the same way I did. I have done this before. I have been with a man with a cane, and he knew where the sign was 6 feet from me. And I thought that was like that superhero deal. Like, I'm trying to guide him around, and I'm like, there's a huge sign here where he left. He's like, I know that. And I'm like thinking, how does he know that? How does he know that?
Touch it.
No, he didn't touch it.
Before?
No. How did he know that? You know why? Because he was listening, and the people, the echoing, changed.
Changes the sound.
When they're closer to a building or whatever. Now these things we inherently just avoid, right? But people that are hearing impaired, sight impaired, they're very acute, and they see things that we don't. They hear things that we don't because they're so finely tuned in this area. Me, I'm a very touchy person, unfortunately. I mean, I want to, hug my daughters. They hate that. I want to do things like that. When I leave my family, I want to give them all a hug before I leave. Right? I'm really weird like that. Now, what we also discontinued, or we didn't talk about there, was taste. Taste is one of our most pronounced inputs. We can really differentiate very, very well from taste, but we just forget about it. So all of these are forms of communication that we get in. We see things, we hear things, we touch things, we smell things, and then we listen for things. Yeah, touch is important, I really like it. Okay, so I'm going to move a little bit. I'm just going to talk about behavior or expression. Okay, so Mark, that guy up there in the upper right-hand corner, what's his mood? What's his attitude?
He looks relaxed and happy.
He does, doesn't he? And Andrew, what about the woman in the lower left right corner?
She looks worried, confused, thoughtful, unsure.
Okay, Damaris, what's this one?
Shock. Surprise.
Do you think it's a good shock or a bad shock?
Uh,
Because that could be like, I won.
She looks very, yeah.
she just
Could
looked
be.
surprised.
She's like,
You're
wow,
surprised, right?
She walked in and saw a big mess in her house.
Like this guy right here, he could look happy, but he could have just like told you off or something. Very sarcastically.
Sure.
Do you ever know people who do that?
yeah.
Passive aggressive.
Some of my favorite people who can tell me that I'm just a shitty person, and I appreciate it. I mean, they will come up to me and I'm like, thank you so much for saying it. I feel better knowing that you feel that way about me. I mean, there's something about them. They could have said anything to me and I'm like, oh, I really appreciate that, right? Now, what about this one, Laura, up here? You got?
Oh, me? She's thinking.
Is that like good thinking, hard thinking, bad thinking?
Like,
A little smirky?
maybe good thinking, yeah.
Good thinking?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm glad you guys are thinking positive, right? That's my whole thing. Everything has a purpose. Everything can be positive, but you have to find it. You got to look for it. Okay, what about this one, Mark?
He's excited to, or he just lifted a bunch of weights.
Oh, he's like pumping iron. Nice. You
I
Let me get a pump in.
Yeah.
got like touchdown out of
Right, I
that?
got his team just scored.
I'm like, I think of the touchdown, that's the guy at one of those football parties, like in your face.
Yeah.
He gets in your personal zone, you know what I mean, right? Okay? Okay, now I want to switch a little bit about speaking. So we looked at about how visually we think about things. I really, really like this discussion. It's because when we speak to each other, we can formulate that into different categories, believe it or not. Right? Now, if I told you, actually, what I want to do is, Demarius, I want you to give me an example of saying something that conveys an obligation.
I don't know, I think contractual obligations, so I think like, I'll pay this payment on such a day.
Good, good. So I will give you your rent check
Right.
on the 30th. That's an obligation. Okay, Mark, tell me one that's about a possibility.
I might come to the party.
You might come to the party. Really, really? You gotta come? If I invite you? You might possibly. All right. All right, how about, Andrea, preference?
Caramel ice cream.
Pardon me?
Caramel ice cream
Versus.
versus vanilla.
That means you're saying that
I prefer caramel ice cream.
if I were gonna buy an ice cream for you, do not, I can buy you vanilla, but you would prefer caramel. Do you like caramel, like, in your coffee?
Okay.
You do. So does my dog. Okay, we're gonna go back to Mark. Tell me something that's passionate, in a passionate way.
I love football.
You love football? Okay, do you really love football?
No.
What do you?
Snowboarding. Love
You
snowboarding.
do love snowboarding. Why didn't you say that?
Why do I love snowboarding?
Why didn't you say that when it came to your mind? Why did you say football?
Because we were just talking about football.
It was just kind of in there. But you do love snowboarding. Are you going up to the mountain? You been there? You hang out there?
Yes.
Flagstaff?
Flagstaff is alright.
Flagstaff's all right. Flagstaff is all right sometimes. But I did some wakeboarding for the first time last year. Took me like 5 or 6 times to get up on the water.
It's pretty similar.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I was gonna quit, you know, because I hated the boat. Always having to come around and everybody in the boat looking at me like an idiot. And you know, you drop the cord, and you have to come back again, and you start it like this, like this. You know, and then like FaceTime, they're like, oh, let's turn the boat around again, you know. So, but the 5th time I got it. Okay, so Demarius, what about a promise? And that kind of is like an obligation, isn't it?
Yeah, promise,
Without using the word.
let's see, wedding vows.
Let's see. That's like I do.
Yeah.
Right? Or I will. That could be a promise, or is it an obligation?
No, because you're making a choice.
Right. Okay, emotional intelligence. Like, I don't know if some of you hear about EQ, IQ, and that I get confused sometimes because I think of the word intelligent, and when I started school, I was in the service, and I got out of school, and so I had to start with, like, before entry-level courses, you know, and I didn't think that I was bright enough to go to a university. I thought those places were filled with really intelligent people, and that wasn't me. I wasn't a bad student in school. I wasn't a great student in school, you know, I was pretty mediocre, but I thought people that went to institutions of higher learning were exceptional, right? Now, do you know that all of us, most likely in this room, that our IQ is plus or minus 5 points from each other? None of us are incredibly brighter than the other, but we just don't believe it. Right? We don't go to courses and we don't major in programs because we think, right, that we can't perform at that level. We think that we can't be engineers, doctors, accountants. We hate math, but in fact we can, but we're convincing ourselves that we can't. Now, emotional intelligence is we're gonna shift, right? To how we feel about things and how you control that. I told you earlier that my friend and I were talking about stress today, and what I really don't understand about this session right now is why hasn't anybody asked me about what's on my back?
I thought it was because of you put, the caveman, the evolution.
Oh, is that it?
I thought it was like a reminder for you to.
Oh, that is a good, and it is a reminder.
I didn't know there was a question and answer period.
Really? Well, I'm telling you, the question and answer period is like right now.
That monkey on your back will come up
Do
eventually.
you think it's a monkey?
I don't know what it is.
Gorilla.
From
What do you
here,
guys
it looks
think?
like, oh, look, he's a gorilla.
What would, do you guys feel like sometimes you have a monkey on your back? Do you understand what that means? I had to talk to an African-American woman this morning, and we talked a little bit. She didn't understand why I would do that, why I would wear this. I mean, and I asked her about the concept of a monkey. I asked her what she thought of that, and she had a different take on it. So I don't know, some people, remember we talked about word and language, how it means different things to different people. When you hear, have you ever heard the statement, there's a monkey on your back? I have a monkey on my back. What do you think when someone says that?
They have some type of addiction or issue that they just can't shake. They just can't break it. It's clinging.
It's bearing on them.
Mhm.
Okay, do all of you think of that? Right now, I don't think of it in that severe terms personally. I think that a monkey on my back could possibly be anything. Like I need to get the oil changed. Or, I could think of it, it's a person that, I work with that bothers me that I have to deal with. Right? I could think of it, it's at home, right? And I'm having challenges with my daughter because she's a teen going through hormonal, right? It could be that, yes?
Is it something bad or good then?
Well, I think most people interpret that connotation with something bad. It's not good. You don't want a monkey on your back.
But you think
Right.
everything positive.
Well, yeah, I'm carrying around like $6 million. It's causing me stress. That would be a really nice monkey, wouldn't it be? Wouldn't that be a great monkey to have?
Toss me the monkey.
I just got somebody gave me a brand new car, now I gotta buy insurance. Dang it. So yeah, thanks for reminding me of that. Okay, so what's really important, and I told you this at the very beginning about how we control our emotions and how we react to others. We can't control what they do to us or how they act or what they say. We can only control how we perceive it and how we're going to express that, right? And so the most important thing I can tell you today out of this whole page is relax. Right? You're in that situation, you're stressed, people are causing you to be stressed, your kids are causing you to be stressed, your parents are causing you to be stressed, your instructor's causing you to be stressed, this test up, just relax. Take 3 deep breaths, big ones. Okay, I want everybody to do that. Here's the second one. Hold it for a second. Then one more. If you do that before your test, if you do that while you're driving, if you do that when you're in a situation you're going to get angry or something like that, right? If you do that in a situation where your daughter just throws her soup all over the floor, whatever, the chances are you're going to act a little bit different. Okay. This is something that I have a very, very, very hard time doing. The I statements. Right? When you're communicating with other people, I have a tendency to say, why did you do that? Right? What I should be saying is, I felt uncomfortable when I heard that. You're putting ownership on yourself. And that is a very, very hard thing to do. Right? Especially, I think, with my children. Right? But if you're in a situation, specifically with a significant other, you're in a relationship, and you're kind of going through some very emotional times, right? Anxiety, stress. The best thing for you to do is think of the I, right? Think of the I and say, I wish I hadn't done that. I know that when I run into problems at work, I think I heard from Dawn this wail of a presentation. When somebody pisses me off, that's on my team and does something wrong, and I'm mad about it, right? This is the first thing I need to do. First, I have to take ownership of it, and I have to go to the person, and I have to say, you know what? I feel responsible for this because I didn't really emphasize how important this was, right? That's the first thing I do, right? Take ownership of it. They're like, oh, okay. The next thing you do is you need to stipulate what the problem was. It was really important that you were there at 7:30. I think I might have mentioned it. I should have written you. I should have reminded you because I really need you then, right? Then how can we prevent it from occurring again? Next time, when we have our next event coming up and I need you there at 7:30, I promise that I won't forget to let you know in advance just to remind you. Then you have to get some sort of accountability, ownership on their side, right? Because you want this mutual agreement to occur, right? And then can I have commitment from you if I forget to do that? You see it on your calendar, will you remind me that that's the time or the place, right? Or will you try to be proactive in doing that, right? That's what I should do instead of saying, been there, you know what I mean? I should have done that, right? Instead of getting angry. I gotta look at it another way.
And you need to breathe.
Breathe. You need to breathe.
What if you're in a place that doesn't smell good?
Still doing.
Still do it! Nice! I love that. Would you like a pair of sunglasses?
Sure.
What about a lanyard? Would you like that more than a pair of sunglasses?
No, sunglasses.
You want the sunglasses up here?
Thank you.
All right, you gotta have that when you're done.
Of course.
Okay.
I'm good.
All right. Okay, so I really want to get into this topic. This is a very important topic to me. It's like, you know, telecommunications, social media, how we're connected. I always like to bring it up in here. Does everybody in here have a phone? Okay. Does everybody know how much their phone costs a month? How much does it cost?
$110.
Okay, 110, Mark?
Too much.
Too much, more than 50?
Yeah, I feel like mine's like 200, but I have my phone and then I have 2 kids, so they have the
Oh, they have theirs on your line too.
Yeah, they have like that.
So if we were to divide that by 3 or something, it could be $70 or something a line, maybe something like that. What about you?
35.
That's how much your phone costs a month, right? So that's a good thing. Most of the times when I do this, I hear probably between 60 and 80, something like that. That's a good one. You know, I don't know what that is, and I really don't want to know.
I was paying 45 and I was like, I cannot, that's way too much for me.
And you have like unlimited text and unlimited.
I want what I need.
Well, I want to talk to you about this presentation. And so the only reason I bring that up is I just remind people, if you were to give up your cell phone for a month, you could buy 1 credit course. And because I hear people saying they can't afford school. I remind them, right? And my daughter, we bought her cell phone. I think we waited till 6th grade. I think her older got it in junior high or whatever. Maybe they're both in junior high. But I never realized that I would be paying for a phone bill for about 10, 15 years. My daughter's in college, probably not till she is 26 years old will I lose that account. And I never had that before with the child, right? Everything was, you know, I didn't have that bill, but now I would have never known it now at that point what it was going to amount to. But that's the way it is, right? So now they have done studies. There's some studies that are coming out that that they believe that some of these microwaves and things that go on, it is starting to develop some neurological problems. What I'm hearing more now with the cell phones is that people aren't even talking. They're more texting or Skyping or instant chatting or the video chats. I think my daughter's very much into the picture video chatting or whatever.
FaceTime.
FaceTime. And then the other thing about it is they're getting bigger. They're getting bigger, they're getting more complicated, and I don't know, I think they're getting, I just think they're changing so much. What I find very interesting, of course, is I do see very many mothers give their children a cell phone to play with. Like in the car, And they might have turned it off, like I might have done, I had it off and they want to play with it or whatever. Or they might have it on a game that they're playing with. So they're using it on. So that's the first step, right? And I talked to you earlier about communicating and how I think that we are becoming socially inept because we're not communicating in person. We're not listening to people, we're not looking at people, we're not smelling people, we're not touching people. And smelling is an important thing.
It is.
It is. I'm telling you, I'll come up to somebody and
Hopefully that's your phone.
I guess I tell the people that I like shave in the morning, or I'll put like aftershave on. I said, there's not going to be anybody that's going to be close enough to smell me in that way, you know what I mean? But we might have significant others. But we do that right now. What's happening is last night when I was watching the Groots, they had an advertisement about Primavera High School, and it's all online. I don't know if it's free or not. Do you guys know if it's free?
Yeah, it's great.
It is free. It is free, right? And so I also go to alternative schools a lot. They'll ask me, and some of them, are some pretty tough situation stuff. But I'm always shocked at these students, these high school students, traditional students, who go to alternate schools, and then those that go completely online. One mother that I was counseling here about a month ago with her daughter, who is in high school, she does the Primavera, and I thought it really mirrored homeschooling without having to homeschool, without having to buy the books and stuff. It's all right there, laid out, whatever. And she loved it. Her daughter loves it. And now she's getting a great education. Very smart woman, wants to go to audio engineering, whatever. You know what I mean? And so the only reason I say this is because, I don't know, I'll find myself at times that I'll be communicating with people like through Facebook or emails or text or something like that. And I'm more likely to tell them things that are personal than I would never tell them that in person. We share things because we don't have to see what they act like, what they see. I hear about these relationships that are developed online through these social medias, right? And people fall in love without ever meeting a person because they think they know them so well because of what they have read and what they have written, right? And so all I'm telling you is it seems like a lot of the data or a lot of the information is going by where I didn't even realize. Now they are trying to counsel young adults who have a phobia of talking to someone on the phone. Right? They get anxiety. Do you want me to call this person? Right? They get anxiety with that act. Right? Same thing. You might feel an anxiety when you make an appointment to talk to your teacher in their office hours. That's kind of stressful for me. I've done that before a few times. I don't know why I get like that. I'm like, I'm going into this world of authority and power, and but I'm going into their office, you know what I mean? But I'm sitting down by their desk. Sometimes when people come into my office, I will have them sit at my desk, in my chair, because I want them to feel different. Like it's not a power situation or it's not a knowledge-based thing. It's kind of like sharing. So we inherently have these things. So all I can tell you is that these types of mediums, they are available. I think that they can help us a lot. I think that they're unavoidable. We know at Mason Community College, in and of itself, 60% of the students are doing either completely online or hybrid. They are taking 3 or 4 courses and then another one online. About 80% of high school graduates will have already taken an online course before they even get to college, which could be their driver's training course, but it's online. Yeah, I don't realize that Rio Community College in our district can teach a person to be a dental hygienist online. Now, how do they do that?
They send you a whole box full of stuff.
Is that right? Have you done that?
You practice on your
Can you
cat?
clean my teeth? That's exactly right. They send them a box of stuff, and they go through these exercises, but they do have to have a practicum. They go back in person, and they have to demonstrate what they've learned, whatever, and they pass the courses, and they get placements in jobs. So, if we're thinking that you can't learn anything, you can learn just about anything online. If you think that you can't, what I have to get more into is the YouTube. There are so many videos now that are teaching you what to do, that we could just go in there and do it and watch it. I always like that, how do I change the spark plug for my mower? Just put it on YouTube and they'll have somebody who's doing it. And then you can watch them and stop or whatever. Is that crazy? And that's what we need, the phones, like they're in there, we can talk to. How much time have I got? And then we can look at the video and see what we're doing right now, right? So social media is out there. I think it's restrictive. I think people are relying upon it too much, the younger generation, because it doesn't force any confrontation. They can stop in and stop out when they like and stuff. But I love the in-person connectivity that we learn and we see and we grow. This experience, I in fact had done a few online webinars last year to virtual high schools. And they're complicated. I have a PowerPoint going, I have audio, I have instant messaging going at the same time. They're asking questions. And I'm doing all this, right? And that's going on, and it's okay or whatever. But it's not my deal. I would rather be in person. Okay, so I think that writing is a really boring topic. Anybody in here writers? Good. That's great. Right, because I'm trying to really use reverse psychology out there. Right, I did a presentation at Gateway Community College. It was Green Day, Environmental Day, and they asked me to speak. So I came up to all those people, I don't know, it was like 100 of them or something like that. And I told them I was their worst nightmare. I told them that I was a liberal. I told them that I'd leave the water on when I brush my teeth every day. I went on and on, all these severe actions, right? And I'm like, none of you are like that, right? And anyway, that's one way of like communicating. If I use some time, go over on the deep end, right? Somebody asks you a question, say, yeah, that's exactly what I am. I do that all the time really hard. You know what they're going to do? They're going to look at you and they're going to think for a second. They're going to believe you, and then they're going to think, oh, you're BSing me, right? Which you win-win, right? Okay, so when you're writing now,